Hey there, crafty crew. The Boss Blitz is back with another tutorial for you today. Today, we're going to be learning how to make chocolate chip cookie wax melts like the ones that I have right here. As always, let me know if you have any questions or crafty requests down in the comments below. Now, let's get into the tutorial. So to start off, we're going to be doing this two different ways. The first way is with no silicone mold whatsoever, and the second way is with just a simple chocolate bar silicone mold. Now let's get into the supplies that you're going to need to make both types of chocolate chip cookie wax melts. First, you will need your wax of choice. Just use whatever wax that you normally use for your wax melts or whatever wax that you use for your embeds on top of your candles. Next, you will need 2 glass or stainless steel bowls. You will need 3 stirring tools. Here I have 2 silicone spatulas and 1 metal spoon. 2 piping bags. You will not need any piping tips or couplers for this tutorial. If you don't have any piping bags, using 2 Ziploc bags will do just fine. A cup to use as a helping hand while putting your wax into your piping bags, but this is optional. 2 silicone mats or plain wax paper. Today, I'm using 1 silicone cookie mat and just 1 piece of wax paper. Scissors to cut your piping bags, a pastry cutter, soap cutter, or knife. I have a pastry cutter. An electric mixer with your attachments, your fragrance of choice. Today I'm using the Cinnamon Sugared Donuts Bath & Body Works type from Aztec Candle Supply. Any dye that is intended to be used in candles or wax melts. Today I'm using liquid candle dye in brown from a Waxy Flower Candle Supply. And the last handful of items are just your basic candle making supplies. Something to measure your fragrance into, like a thick plastic bowl or glass, a thermometer, a scale to measure your fragrance and your wax with, pouring pitcher or piston funnel, and last but not least, a means of melting your wax like a Presto pot or a double boiler. Down in the description below, I will include links to all of the supplies that I have listed. Now that you have everything you need, we can get into making our cookie wax melts. So if you're like me and you're using a Presto pot, go ahead and turn on your pot and melt your wax as you normally would. If you have just a pound or 2 of wax left in your Presto pot, that's more than enough for this tutorial. You're not going to need a full pot of wax for this. The first way that you can make your chocolate chips is to prepare your wax as you normally would, except instead of putting it in your pouring pitcher, go ahead and put it into a small mixing bowl. For this, I'm using 3 ounces of wax and 0.4 ounces of fragrance. Since I'm using this as a wax melt and a wax melt only, that is why I'm using ever so slightly above 12% fragrance load. Once you have prepared your wax as you normally would, go ahead and set the bowl aside so that it can cool down. We're going to be following a similar process as to when we made our whipped wax. If you haven't seen that video, it's linked down in the description. While your wax is cooling, go ahead and prepare your piping bag. Since you won't be using any tips or couplers for this, you can just cut as large or as small of a hole as you would like in your piping bag. Just keep in mind that the larger of a hole that you do cut, the larger your chocolate chips will be. Your wax is not going to cool down completely. It's only going to cool to a point where you can make a fingerprint in the top with no liquid or shine coming through. Once your wax has reached the correct consistency, go ahead and grab your mixer and mix it. Once your wax is whipped, go ahead and take your spatula and scoop it into your piping bag. If you need a cup for this, by all means, use it. Once your wax is in your piping bag, grab your plain silicone mat or wax paper, not the cookie mat just yet. Take your piping bag into your hands and firmly but gently squeeze your wax to the end of the piping bag, but not pushing it out of the bag just yet. Get the end of your piping bag right on the surface that you're piping onto. Be as gentle as you can. Squeeze your bag firmly and move upwards with your piping bag. On this upward motion, release your piping bag quickly. Continue this process until you have emptied your piping bag. So these will not look like perfect chocolate chips that you get out of the store. As a matter of fact, I did go through and push these down just a little bit afterwards, so that way they look more natural, like they would had they just come out of the oven. Once you have finished, set your chocolate chips aside and let them cool completely. Once they have cooled, you can remove them from your silicone mat or your wax paper. For your second means of making your chocolate chips, you will just need a plain chocolate bar silicone mold like this one that I have here. If you want to use a snap bar mold, you can absolutely use one of those as well. For this, I will just use my pouring pitcher and prepare my wax as I would a normal wax melt. When I fill this mold, I typically use 2.5 ounces of wax and 0.3 ounces of fragrance. Then we're going to let this solidify and cool down completely before demolding our chocolate bar. Once your chocolate bar is demolded, you can take whatever cutting tool that you have chosen and cut up your chocolate bar into as large or as small of pieces as you like. I like to do more of the chocolate chunk look because it reminds me of a good home style cookie. Now, with your chocolate chips ready, you can begin making the main part of your cookies. For this batch of cookies, I'll be using 12 ounces of wax and 1.5 ounces of fragrance. Again, that is slightly above 12% fragrance load, but since I'm only using these for wax melts, that is perfectly okay. This will also make exactly 6 chocolate chip cookies for me, since I am using the silicone cookie mat. When it comes time to let my wax for my cookies cool, I'm going to take my metal spoon and stir it periodically as it does. When I go to stir my wax, I'm going to gently scrape the sides of the bowl, just so that I can get any of the wax off that has hardened and stuck to the sides. Doing this is going to help us get that realistic cookie texture in the end. As you continue this process, you're going to see that your wax is starting to become more like a batter, and this is exactly what you're looking for. While your wax is cooling and you're in between stirring, go ahead and prepare your next piping bag. Since we're going to make cookies with this piping bag, you can go ahead and cut the end off a bit farther back than you did when you made the chocolate chips. Once your wax shows no sign of having any liquidy parts or being a little bit too fluid, it's ready to work with. This right here is what you're looking for. Now we're going to take this wax that's for our cookies and put it into our piping bag. And again, if you need to use your cup to help you, absolutely do so. Now we're ready to pipe our cookies onto our cookie mat. Before you begin, make sure that you have squeezed your wax all the way to the end of your piping bag, but not yet squeezing it out. Once we're ready to start, we're going to get the end of our piping bag just above our cookie mat and squeeze firmly but gently. You don't have to make any specific hand motions at this time, but pay attention to how far your wax is going out of your piping bag and towards the lines. Once the wax gets close but not yet touching the lines, go ahead and stop squeezing your bag. If you're using just wax paper, make your cookies almost as large as you would like them to be, but not quite. Now you can proceed and do the rest of your cookies. Once all of your cookies are piped, you can use your spatula or take your hand and just gently press the top of each cookie down just a little bit. After you've pressed the top of your cookies down, you can grab your chocolate chips and gently press them into the top of each cookie that you have. You can add as many or as few as you would like on the top of each cookie. Be sure though not to push each chocolate chip to the very bottom of your cookie. You just want them to be on top and gently pressed into the cookie. Once you have finished adding all of your chocolate chips to your cookies, Set your cookies aside and let them cool before removing them from your mat or your wax paper. Once they have fully cooled, go ahead and remove them from your mat or your wax paper. And now we have our beautiful, realistic looking chocolate chip cookie wax melts. Here is one with our piped chocolate chips. And here is one with our chocolate chips that we made using the chocolate bar silicone mold. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a like. And if you would like to see future candle and craft videos, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy making.